So we had two very nice moves last week, one being this SPX cup and handle breakout, which we saw more upside. If you remember in the last Sunday video, I spoke about this potential setup here back into the supply range, or at least to the top of it. And we did end up seeing that upside. And then also on Tesla, we had that retest of the downward trend line, this blue one right here, and then a very nice pop for more upside afterwards. So we saw a market-wide bounce to end last week. What's going to be very interesting heading into this week specifically, because this is both a week for Vixpiration as well as OPEX, is will the S&P 500 be able to hold above this range? Remember, 4,450 to 4,500 is one of the strongest ranges I have in the entire market, specifically at least between 2020 as well as the current time period. So we know this is a very hard resistance. We saw a pullback from back here, although it was significantly muted. And then we saw another mini pullback from back here for the cup and handle. And then we saw the breakout. So the key here is how many weeks can we see a close above this range? That will decide a lot, especially going into the more bearish time period, at least in terms of seasonality. We just know that August, September, and then as well as early October are more bearish. At least those fall months tend to be more on the bearish side, and in terms of the VIX and volatility, tend to be the best months, at least for the VIX performance, the most bullish months that is. So with that being said, a good indicator if there is going to be some type of a correction into those months is, will we see a breakdown back below 4,450? Price can still trade within this range and continue up to another supply range that I actually have up here. But if there's a decisive break below 4,450, specifically within that August to early October time period, then we will likely see a lot more downside to at the very least 4,300, potentially even lower after that. Now, we're still just in the middle of July, so there's more time here to go, but that's just a basic framework of how things are going to work going into those fall months. So this 4,450 level, very likely it gets retested here very shortly. This is going to be a key pivot that, if broken to the downside, will promote a lot more weakness in the market, specifically within that bearish seasonal time period. So just keep that in mind going forward. For this week at least, we are stuck within this range at the moment. I do have a pivot at 4,525. We did see a rejection just about off of that level earlier on Friday. But also we have this support now because we did break above 4,500. So price will likely trade in between each. If we have confirmation above this pivot here, then it will go to the next range, which is another supply zone I have. This one isn't as strong as this red range here, but supply zone nevertheless. This is roughly 4,550, just about to 4,570-ish. So about a 20-point range. So a little bit less than this red range here, but expect there to be some form of a pullback off this range as well if it is reached this week. With that being said, I also shared in the last video this key trend line here, this yellow trend line on the dollar, which we did see a pickup on Friday, because remember, this is a key retest. We haven't retested this level in a very long time, all the way since over a year ago, back in May of 2022. This is the line that goes back all the way here to the time of the dot-com bubble, actually, back here in 2001, and it goes down across. We broke out of it in 2022, and then this will be the first complete retest of this level. We haven't had that yet. We did see a breakout retest and then continuation after, but this will be the first complete retest, and it's been a very long time since we did have that breakout back in May of 2022. So I expect there to be some type, at the very least, of a short-term bounce here for the dollar, which can bring more weakness specifically to industrials like the Dow Jones Index, but also can have some weight on the S&P 500. So you can watch for that. Also going over here to Tesla, just an update on this one, because we did see that nice bounce from the downward trend line level. Remember, this is the key level that if it's broken down decisively below, that we'd see more downside. Otherwise, this isn't a bounce zone. We did see a nice bounce off the downward trend line. And then not only that, but if you look here at the 15-minute chart, we did see continuation above 274, which was a known pivot before, where we did see these two decisive bounces actually off this level. So the fact price was able to continue up above it and hold above it is a bullish sign. So unless it's able to get back below in the future here, then it can remain in that bullish bias. Also an update here on the dark pools from last week. We've still been looking at a ton of premium every single day on SPY, which has been characteristic now for multiple months. But you can see over here on Friday, we had 3 billion worth of premium. Remember, anything over 3 billion is definitely something you should take note of. This is at 449.63. And then going back to Thursday over here, we also saw a decent amount. We saw 3.2 billion, so even more than what we saw on Friday. This is at 445.84, so below the current close that we had on Friday. And then the big one was actually Wednesday of last week, which was 5.1 billion in premium at the 442.52 level. I actually marked this one here in that Wednesday video. So 442, about 52. So right about that close level that we had on Tuesday. And remember, signature dark pool prints, the ones I just showed you here, are delayed by about 24 hours. So it was the day prior that it came in, but keep this level and at least this range in mind, because I expect there to be some type of retest, if not this week, very likely next week after we have that post OPEX window of weakness. If we do retest this level, at the very least intraday, it will produce some form of a bounce. So keep this level in mind going forward. But again, just based on the graphic above right here, you can see a lot of these larger prints are below the current close that we had on Friday. So if we get a retest again, like I just said, of that range between both of these, then there's likely going to be some type, at the very least, of a short-term bounce. Price, of course, can always break through that range, but if you do like to scalp intraday or maybe even take just an overnight swing, this can produce not only a good risk-reward setup, but also be very profitable in the end. So just keep that in mind going into this week. But again, the amount of dark pool premium has just been off the charts recently on the S&P 500. We just continuously have been grinding up. We saw that cup and handle breakout and continuation this week. So bears certainly have a lot of work to do once they retest this supply zone, or at least previous supply zone. Specifically after this week, again, we do have that post OPEX window of weakness paired with eventual seasonality, a more bearish seasonality that is. So bears have a chance for some type of a correction from up here, especially because of how overextended we are right now, but always best to look for some form of confirmation just because the trend has been up for a while at the moment. Like I just shared earlier in the video, 4,450, very key level. If this is broken, then we will see more downside afterwards. So keep this pivot in mind. I just want to reiterate that because this is very crucial going forward here. Otherwise, we'll stay range bound in between here for this week. I also do have a turn date coming up here on Friday of this week, so July 21st. That's when if we do see upside, let's say Thursday and Friday, and this will produce some form of downside afterwards. And I'd actually characterize this as a triple threat day because it doesn't just have one cycle that converges on this day. I actually have 3 variables that'll converge on Friday. I have this cycle, of course, right here, which I won't be able to share, but I do have this other one, which I've shared publicly on this channel, the 18-day cycle that also lands on Friday. So this cycle paired with the other one here that I have on SPX, as well as a weekly turn date, which just happens to land here on Wednesday of this week, but this is for the weekly chart. So I expect there to be downside the week of July 24th. If we do see more consolidation this week, or upside and the weekend's green. So if we do see that upside into end of week here, weekend's green, there's very, very likely that we see downside the following week and probably even 2 weeks after that. So heading into that August time period, early August, to have some form of downside. So keep that in mind going forward. Thought I'd just share that with you guys because this is a very nice reversal setup here when you have 3 variables converge all at once. So keep that in mind. Other than that, see you guys in the next video on Wednesday.